Whatever I thought. I soon realized, the diary of Wilson, fixing myself. I lay in my bed knowing in no time the clock will strike midnight and I know exactly how I will finish this evening. Drowning in a pool of sedatives. Hoping to find myself somewhere at the bottom. Yeah, I drink. I drink a lot, but it's okay because I'm not like those mainstream violent alcoholics keeping the neighbors up at 3 a.m. because some guy apparently slept with his wife. No, you see, something inside my mind isn't quite right, the wires are crossed. Meaning I use the booze to function. To feel semi-normal in this decaying world. Our vessels call home. Just as I place my finished cigarette in the ashtray. The clock strikes 12. I let out a sigh. I need more, the wine just isn't cutting it anymore, my mind is still racing. I stand up slowly, brushing the remaining tobacco dregs off of my shirt. When I enter the kitchen I notice there is nothing left. No booze. No food. Fuck. I start searching through cabinets. As if I'm looking for a lost child while my head slowly starts to fill with thoughts again. And I am becoming desperate and restless. When suddenly, a small cardboard package with the words diazepam 2 milligrams written on the label falls from the top cupboard. Instant release, I thought. Grabbing the small package, I rip the cardboard open and reveal the blue heart shaped pills. In a moment of relief-induced impulsivity I take 3. Straight away my mind flew to the possibility of sedative-induced respiratory depression. Fuck it. I thought. See, at this point in my life I have reached total freedom. Most people believe freedom is the couple inches the government or your parents give you for good behavior. No, all that is a reward for subservience. This is totally different. When you have nothing and no one can harm you. You could die at any moment and it wouldn't mean shit for nothing. I suppose that applies to everyone. Nothing we do matters, so if we are going to die, enjoy your vices, live life to the fullest. It may be shorter, but it's arguably preferable to a long, outdrawn life of dystopian rat races. Sitting in an office 9/5 while your boss screams orders at you from a video call on a PC like some sort of Jitch-style dictator. I walk back to my chair. I am so fucking bored of this, I exclaim under my breath. See, I want tonight to be totally different. I want to feel the solace one only finds when something moderately interesting happens, be that bad or good. See, our minds are hardwired for adventure. The only thing I can think of other than calling this my final night is to completely lose my fucking mind. If I'm ill I might as well go all the way, right? I sip my whiskey as I contemplate the best way to go totally fucking mental in a matter of hours. Whatever I thought, I soon realized this is just another one of my radical solutions for giving purpose to my despair. Suddenly the phone rings. I ignore it, assuming it's just another get-rich-quick scammer telling me he's going to give me purpose. Ha! Bullshit. However, a minute later the telephone rings again. It's odd for them to call twice, so I stumble out of my chair in a haze and answer. Wilson. The person on the end of the line exclaims. Yeah, what do you want? Well, I know you quit your job recently. Yes. Well, given your free time, I've just picked up some sunshine acid from Nevada and I really need to move this shit before my girlfriend comes back. Please buy some, I'll do it for cheap. Bingo, I thought. Given the tone of his voice and his overall demeanor, I knew straight away. It was Reggie. Me and Reggie go way back, however, after his counterculture acid phase. He got a bit too heavy into the drugs and I decided to pursue my career in stock trading. Last time I saw him, he was in a halfway house wired off all sorts of socially acceptable drugs. I could tell by his voice that he was panicked. His girlfriend was sort of a hard ass. Ever since he got addicted to God knows what. Drinking she disapproved of, however would let slide. Anything illegal though, and had be at the behest of a woman's rage. Given this and my current situation, I decide tonight I can totally lose my fucking mind as planned while simultaneously helping out an old buddy. When I thought. Sure dude, where and when? I say calmly but excitedly. Fuck dude, I knew you would help me out, thank you so goddamn much. I'll be at Winston Roundabout at 2, I'll call you when I'm there. No problem man. I say casually, wanting to sound as cool and as alternative as he is. I walk down the stairs and sit on the last step in the landing, anticipating his phone call while repeatedly checking my watch. The phone rings. I surge from my sitting position and answer it eagerly. I'm here dude, he says in a stoned voice. Cool, I reply and grab the keys off of my windowsill. Fuck. I thought I can't fucking drive, I'm totally buzzed. However, my mind quickly retorts that by reminding me Winston Roundabout is only 7 blocks away. I unlock the main driver door and start the engine before taking off. Cruising down Main Street, I stare pertinently at my surroundings. This road used to be full of small shops, pubs and bustling nightlife. Now it lies derelict or replaced by social housing. See, after the recession in the 90s, most people had to pack up shop. Most of their lives ruined because of a lack of small paper notes. This place is like a ghost town now. A tiny wisp of what it used to be. I drive past my old school, now turned into a care home, and see the shop that used to lie next to it, now tattered and abandoned. I remember an old shopkeeper and his wife used to live there, and he would sell king-size cigarette papers to kids still in their school uniform. He's probably dead now, given the only reason he did this was because his mind was slowly rotting. Thinking about it, we were all kind of dicks for taking advantage of him like that. However, our weekly joint on the school field mid-class definitely made up for that. The euphoria of your first buzz combined with the tranquility of your environment. Laying with your friends totally dazed as the breeze whips through your hair as the sun beats down on your skin, feeling like a warm blanket. Knowing that whatever happened, you always had this moment of sheer bliss to fall back on, and this was the way life was going to be from now on. A teenager, drunk with hope by his own youth and friends who promised to never leave. I arrive at Winston Roundabout at around 2:10 and start approaching the bench we always usually meet at when he is providing me with his off-label pharmaceutical services. I see him sat on the bench staring longingly into the distance. He is wearing a checkered shirt with jeans and some what look like freshly polished shoes. Fuck, I thought. Is this what rehab does to you? It looks as if he's trying incredibly hard to rebrand himself as a good clean suburban boy who only does good old-fashioned American drugs such as tobacco and alcohol. He looks as if he's been taken straight out of one of those 1990s DAREP essays. This is definitely the work of his girlfriend. In my opinion, any girl who wants to change you never really loved you for who you were. They were just going through a phase. They long grown out of leaving you two stuck together. He is a shell. His old self is totally repressed, and that crazy anarchist festival goer is long gone, buried deep within his soul somewhere. As I approach, he gives me a gentle wave and says hi dude, while smiling as if seeing a relative for the first time in a while. I guess it was just a relief for him to interact with someone on the exact same wavelength as him instead of the suburban do-gooders he's been hanging around with. I sit down beside him at the bench and hand him the $50 note I had in my pocket. Thanks so much for this, man, he exclaims in a sigh. No problem, plus it gets me nice and high, so I'm sorted. I chuckled, and so did he. He passed me a small slab of tin foil and says, "There's 5 tabs of sunshine acid in there." I wrapped them in foil so they wouldn't decrease in strength. Reggie always used to do this. He was sort of a pioneer in that respect. Most drug dealers would hand you a tab in a small baggie. After it had been exposed to light for long periods, decreasing its overall strength and quality. See, Reggie's acid was some of the strongest, nicest stuff I'd ever taken. I still to this day have no idea where it comes from, although I know his father was arrested back in '98 for having an acid lab in his basement. We shake hands and hug before going our separate ways after I thank him for the acid and tell him he can call me anytime. To be truthful, I felt sorry for the guy. While on the exterior he looked as if he was about to go to church, I knew secretly he was dying for a 6-day bender in some stranger's apartment. Walking back to the car, I am hit with sudden disorientation. My eyes roll back into my head and my vision becomes like water. And my legs begin to feel like jelly. Shit, I thought this must be the Valium. I knew in an hour I was about to be totally out of commission. And walking right now did not seem like a viable option, let alone sitting behind a wheel and operating a vehicle. However, in blind determination to take some of this acid, I crawled to the door of my car and fondled around with the lock for a minute or so before finally getting it open and hoisting myself in. Fuck, this was impossible. Each button seemed to glow at me, and finding the correct ones to press and the ignition was a task in its own right. After I spent 5 minutes trying to get the car started and into drive, I succeeded and took off. Driving was more like sailing. It was like the steering was inverted. Whenever I turned left it would go right, when I turned right it would go left. After a long painful drive, I pulled up to the driveway of my home, knocking over 3 trash cans in the process, and stumbled out of my car. The next task would be to open the door. After spending 3 minutes trying to find the key and fondled the lock for a further 4 minutes before finally getting inside, I immediately sink into my armchair. At this point the effects of this terrible drug had begun to fully take hold, and staying conscious was incredibly difficult. Now or never, I thought as I swallowed back 3 tabs of Reggie's sunshine acid with a glass of whiskey. I stare at the walls, counting the clock, eagerly awaiting the signs of the come up. The clock seemed to be moving faster than time itself, from 2 to 3 to 4, and the room spun around me as I laid paralyzed in my chair. This wasn't the acid but the effects of the Valium. Around 4 all consciousness was completely gone. I began to have dreams overlaid over my vision of my sitting room. Now this was the acid. Amazing geometric patterns flashed like old-fashioned 90s screensavers. Patterns cascade and bend as I lay there in awe, totally unaware of what was occurring in my mind. A truly oceanic experience. However, things were about to get a lot more interesting. I must have passed out, and to be honest I wasn't surprised, as for the last 5 hours all I can remember is black. I awoke laying under a tree on the top of a small hill overlooking the town. The view was stunning as it was early evening, and although the sun was shining, the early signs of dusk were starting to show. Lights of the town seemed to accentuate each other, and the sunlight bounced off the roof of each building in the downtown area like little mirrored reflections. Oddly enough, there was no birdsong, no dusk chorus or the early sounds of owls. Rather, it was completely silent except for the sound of the breeze and the grass rustling beneath it. Strangely though, the breeze sounded odd, more warped and fluid. And the clouds above the town were pink in their complexion, but looked like small wisps of paint dashed onto a canvas, and seemed to have way more dimensions than an ordinary cloud. The sky was similar to Van Gogh's Starry Night. It was then I realized I was dreaming. However, it felt much more real due to the large amount of lysergic acid in my system. In front of me overlooking the town was a small tree trunk with what looked like a little metal teacup laid on the side. I approached the stump and sat taking in the serenity of my environment. That's when I inspected the cup. It had tea that looked as if it had just came out of the kettle, fresh, hot and sweet smelling. It was then that I realized the tea had a small note tied to the holder. It read, "For you enjoy," on the side of it. This was odd but a welcome anomaly nonetheless. And I started sipping on the tea, feeling like a kid in front of the fire on a crisp winter's evening. I stared intently at the town, imagining the song "Ladies and Gentlemen, we are floating in space" by Spiritualized playing as that song and its title seemed to fit the current scenario. I was utterly thoughtless and in a state of sheer bliss, totally disassociated from the rest of my surroundings. However, I was quickly shocked out of my trance when I heard children laughing and screaming excitedly behind me. I turned to look at them. They were holding hands and laughing while skipping around the tree. But something was off about them. In fact, something was off about this entire scenario. I had a strange sense as if I'd been here before, and the children looked oddly familiar. Then it hit me. This was the tree stump I took my girlfriend to in 5th grade when her parents and mine used to hang out. And those two children by the tree were me and her. I was astonished. This all felt unreal, yet there I was sitting there looking at my 5th grade self playing under a tree as if I was right there in front of me. Then the two children started to approach me. My 5th grade self ran over to me excitedly while pulling my 5th grade girlfriend in his hand with him. They both sat down next to me. Before my younger self said, "Did you get the tea I made you?" "Yeah, I'm drinking it now," I said, utterly amazed and shocked at what was happening, still not fully processing the fact I was talking to my younger self and he had just made me tea. They both looked at me curiously before he exclaimed, "So you're me, right?" I answered uncertainly, I guess so, yeah." He just responded with a simple casual an odd reaction given the fact he was speaking to his older self. "So what's it like being an adult?" he queried. I didn't know what to say given my experience of adulthood. I wanted to tell him the truth but didn't want to totally spoil this kid's dreams. That would be cruel, and after all he is me. So I responded simply, "It's alright, I suppose. Not as fun as being a kid though." "What do you mean?" "Well, when you're a kid you're a lot more free, you know, like for instance you have people to look after you, so you can do whatever you want and not really worry about anything else. The world is sort of your canvas, you know, I guess. Still though, I'd really like to be able to drive and drink beer." I laughed at this comment and replied jokingly, "Beer isn't as nice as you think, kid." "So what's your job?" he said before his girlfriend chimed in and corrected him. "My job, don't you mean?" she said, laughing. "Yeah," he said, both giggling to each other. "Well, I was a stock trader." "What's that?" they both said. "Well, basically I sell and buy companies." This isn't at all accurate, but how do you expect me to explain the intricacies of the stock market to a 7-year-old? "Cool," he said. "So are you like super rich?" his girlfriend inquired excitedly. "Sort of, yeah," I laughed. I wasn't exactly rich at this stage of my life, just sort of comfortable. Besides, I never really believed in materialism anyway. "Being an adult sounds cool. I don't get why you don't like it," he said. "Look, all I'm saying, kid, is anything bad that happens now doesn't really matter. Just enjoy everything as it comes, because when you look back on it at my age, you're gonna see it as silly and meaningless, and you're gonna wish you had problems like that again. Trust me, adult problems are a lot worse," I said, not wanting to be too harsh but sounding a lot like my father. "We're gonna go play hopscotch now by me," he said laughing. Have fun guys, I said before staring into my tea, feeling kind of emotional and perplexed by the situation. Thoughts sat with me for a moment. I thought about what I said to him about how everything looks worse in the moment but a lot better in past tense. I wondered if it was just a sad factor of life that when we look back on things they're glazed in nostalgia, but during the actual moment the nature of the human spirit disallows us from actually enjoying it until much later on. I wondered what it would feel like to be like that again. Young and carefree, and if I could ever really get back there, even if I quit the drugs. I began to tear up as I stared out into the view of the town, the silence only broken by the two playing together behind me. I started to realize I was doomed, and instead of a great epiphany, all I had found within myself was the truth I'd known for years. I was not built for adult life. And all those happy memories are gone. Because of this, I hoped he had heeded my warnings and learned to take things in his stride so as to not waste his last couple of years before life truly begins. And you get locked into a ride you can't ever get off. They played behind me for about an hour or so as I stared, contemplating the situation before. Slowly but surely the sound faded and it was replaced with sheer silence apart from the wind and the brush of trees. I turned to look and they were both gone. As quickly as they arrived, they had left equally as quickly, leaving me with more questions than answers. I must have sat at that stump for about an hour, cracking open a beer from my pocket after finishing my tea. After a short while I heard bustling of grass behind me and what sounded like Wellingtons on the ground. Then my younger self came and sat next to me again, this time however much older, about 7th grade, and without my old girlfriend with him. He had rested his head on the top of his palms and stared at the ground in a melancholic way. Might as well talk to him, I thought before exclaiming, "What's up, little man? Don't worry, you said adult problems are worse, so it won't matter what's wrong," he said, sulking. That made me question a lot about my statement before. Was I looking at this the wrong way? Maybe he feels emotions more because of his age rather than less? Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're invalid, I said, searching for a good response. I don't know what that word means, but I don't care anymore. Lisa broke up with me. Lisa, by the way, was my 5th grade girlfriend. This made me giggle on the inside. No, I really was right. I thought it is trivial being a kid and only having to deal with silly 2-week relationship breakups. However, I wasn't going to say this to him. Well, why don't you talk about it, kiddo? I am you after all. Maybe I can help you get over it, I inquired. I loved her to the moon and back, and she was my first ever girlfriend, and now it feels like my heart's been ripped out and no one else cares for me. God, sometimes I wish I was never born. These words resonated with me as I started to see a different perspective and remember what this experience actually did feel like at the time. Jesus, had I been so drunk on nostalgia that I thought I hadn't always been this cynical? I was always a quiet kid after all, and what he was saying sounded a lot more than just kids being dramatic. Oh come on kid, don't say that. There's plenty of things in life to be here for. What about all your toys and friends? At this point I was just ad-libbing as I had no idea how to deal with the situation, considering I never had kids of my own. Yeah, well, you're only here talking to me because of the drugs. My life couldn't have gone that well, and plus I don't even enjoy those things anymore. I'm growing up and I hate it. At this point everything was coming back to me. What it was like being the quiet kid, the one who never spoke to anyone because he never thought he was adequate enough. The one that everyone wrote off as having learning difficulties and refusing to teach. The one that child psychologists could just never quite understand. And His first words in particular really drove that point home. Was I really suicidal at 10 years old? I know I wasn't a well kid, but Jesus, it feels like I've been doomed from the start. At this point all my inhibitions had gone and my emotions were starting to hijack my decision making. I decided, since this kid already knows the pain of growing older, I might as well do him the justice of telling him what it's really like. I sighed. Listen kid, you're really smart, I can't argue with you, and I'm just going to say you're right because you are, but as I said before, this is just the early stages of growing up. This pain isn't compared to what you'll feel when you're fully grown, and I am pleading with you, please enjoy this, get the most out of it as you can. Because there will never be an opportunity to be this happy again. He stared at me, giving the impression he understood, as if he was ready to accept this harsh reality. Even though I was a sick kid, I was always very mature for my age, and this just proved that. He seemed totally unmoved by the dark truths I had just laid in front of him and just smiled before saying, "Thanks for telling me the truth." "You're welcome kid," I said, smiling back. "Can I have one of your beers?" he said, staring at the 4-pack by my foot. "Are you kidding me?" I laughed. "I know you're sad kid, but come on, I didn't know I was this bad," I chuckled. "Well, I am you, so by drinking that beer you're basically giving me the beer too," he said. I pondered this thought for a second. It wouldn't hurt him after all, he isn't real, and well, he is me. Clever little bastard, I chuckled before tossing him a beer and a glass opener. We talked openly for a couple of hours before he finished his beer and left the same way he came. This time I was met with an even harsher reality that yes, in fact, there was never any time of true happiness, and I had in fact been this jaded since that young. Instead of feeling emotional like before, I began to feel anhedoic. After all, if I had always been this sad, then nothing is going to change, right? And at least I can accept that and be comfortable with it instead of not knowing. I thought before questioning the point of even continuing if that's the case. Before I could utter another word, he appeared again, this time to say a few words before swiftly leaving back into the caverns of my mind. I really loved her, you know. Understanding immediately that he was trying to convey to me his emotions were valid, and I quickly remembering that very scenario and how it felt like the sharp end of a jagged blade, I responded softly, "I know kid." When he left, 2 more people replaced where he once was. It was me again. Except this time 16 years old, with my girlfriend at the time, Heather. I turned wanting to be shocked, but given the events of this dream and how melancholic I was from everything it taught me, I showed no sign of emotion. Their faces reciprocated the feelings. I stood there staring as they began arguing with each other. "I promise to get clean if you stay, Heather, please." "I want to, but I can't do it anymore. Everyone is so judgmental towards me because I have the same things you do, and I can't keep coming home from that and have to take care of you too." Those words hit me like a ton of bricks. I remembered this exact argument. I had come home late one night after a party with some old high school friends, promising her I'd quit Valium the days prior, but breaking that promise quickly by coming home messed up on it. I felt like a total scumbag and remembered the pain I felt from this too, which up until now had been buried in my psyche somewhere. "Fucking idiot," I muttered under my breath while they continued to argue. Before she told him to be quiet, and a moment of silence ensued before she teared up and said, "Anyway, it's not you, it's me." My younger self stared into her eyes before clasping her head tight to her chest and exclaiming caringly, No babe, no, what do you mean it's you? You're right, I need to get clean. I don't care about the drugs, all this is about is the fact I'm not good enough for you." What the fuck do you mean? You're literally amazing. Sometimes I wonder if you fell from space, my younger self said before chuckling slightly in a comforting tone. Everyone else thinks I'm sick. Yeah, but they think I'm sick too. It doesn't matter, it just shows we are kindred spirits, babe. This part of the argument also hit home. I remember feeling like this after being diagnosed as mentally ill and having her comfort me. But she was different. A sensitive soul really, and always took these things to heart. She never in her whole life, I think, ever thought she was worthy of love. I teared up remembering how lost this girl was and how I just continued to do drugs regardless of her wishes, and sometimes how I could not be there for her when she needed me most. Me, the one person who actually showed interest and care in her. I began to feel rage, a strong sense of self-hatred building up inside me before chugging my beer and smashing it on the floor. It felt like I was no longer in control, and I began shouting, "You fucking idiot, Wilson, she loved you, she fucking loved you, and you were never there, you worthless fucking drug addict," I screamed and began repeating, "Fuck you," over and over before falling to the floor crying. It was then I realized they could not see nor hear me. It was as if a memory was being played, rather than before when people were being presented. Like my brain was deliberately trying to taunt me for some divine purpose. Never have I felt more powerless than now. I was literally watching myself throw my life away before my eyes and could do nothing about it. The argument gradually became more and more intense before I blacked out once again and awoke in the exact same spot with them sitting next to me. Once again, arguing, except this time not with each other. We seemed to be degrading ourselves while the other partner would argue in our favor before degrading themselves, and repeating the cycle. This went on for about 20 minutes before I couldn't take it anymore and shouted, "Listen, you two, I'm fucking tired of this. I'm going to sort this out. I made this mess. I'm going to fix it." They looked at me seemingly unfazed that they were talking to the future version of me. "Wilson, look at me. And listen, because I am the only person on this fucking planet that can save you from the desolation that awaits you if you fuck this up. I don't fucking care if you don't get clean. But please do not ignore her when she says things like this. She isn't just sad, Wilson, she fucking loves you and is looking to confide, and if you could just get out of that fucking buzz for 5 seconds and be a man, all this would go away. And Heather, I am so fucking sorry. If I only knew how I was affecting you, I would change so goddamn much. But here I am and I see now, so please let me try again. And I won't fuck it up. You are the most beautiful, kindest soul on this fucking earth, and you know what, he's right, Heather, you did fucking fall from space. No drug in the world can make me feel the way I did when you said you wouldn't ever stop loving me on my 16th birthday dash. Suddenly time froze. All the answers seemed to cascade into one big universal truth. That human beings are doomed to fail, and that without being miserable at least once in our lives, nothing would really matter. I didn't care before, but being in this moment I realize I did all of this purely out of compromised cognitive skills, either through drugs or from immaturity. All that matters is that I had these experiences and knew these people, even if I never see them again, even if that makes me sad. There and then I felt it, the first real emotion I'd felt in years, hitting me like pure snow on a winter morning. I felt sad. And it felt good. I realized all this time all I'd been wanting is positive affirmation, but positive affirmation is nothing without negative affirmation. I have been an imbecile and I'm okay with it. Because that was a down and this was an up. I understand now, I said absently. I fucking get it, I screamed before leaping to my feet and staring them both straight in the eyes, grabbing them by the palms and looking down at them. Listen to me, both of you, there is nothing wrong with you. You aren't different, you aren't special, you can do wrong just like anyone else and you can do right like anyone else. Wilson, you are a strong individual who has made it 30 fucking years without knowing his purpose and trying desperately to cling onto the rope of other people's plans for you. And Heather, you are strong, loving and creative just like anyone else, but if you let this define you, you will be sad forever. One perspective from a couple of doctors is not the right one. Remember that, and also remember that I want to see you go out there and seize everything you deserve. Even if that means I can't have you by my side. I paused for a second, tearing up before saying, I love you guys so fucking much. Then just like that they were gone and I once again blacked out. This time, however, I awoke in my room half asleep before seeing my younger 16-year-old self at the end of my bed, leaning against the bedpole and saying 6 simple but equally meaningful words. I am glad you finally get it now. And just like that, he toasted a beer in the air, was gone as quick as he came.